what is the purpose of a strain gauge? So it is like a transducer for measuring strain. Okay. Now the basic principle is that if you have a resistance in a circuit, which basically is a long wire, okay, of certain length L, which is not this length, but the total winding length of the winding. And if the material property is this rho, which is called the resistivity, and the cross section area of the wire is A, then the resistance of the uh, of this wire or this winding is you must be familiar with this expression. Sorry, I wrote it wrong. So it is rho times L divided by A. Okay. So so imagine in your experiment you are testing a mechanical component of a given specimen, or it could be a particular type of mechanical component like a beam or a column, okay, on maybe even a tensile test specimen, the one like the dog bone specimen you have seen in the previous semester. This one is called a dog bone specimen. Okay. So if you can attach this resistance, or basically paste this resistance on this one, okay, and if you apply load on either side, or basically apply load on either side and then other side is kept fixed, so the quasi equilibrium dictates that on either side it is the same force. So this causes certain amount of stress, and that stress causes the strain, and this component right here, it would elongate or contract depending on the sign of the force, and as it does so, so does the resistance that has been pasted on it. So that accounts for a change in length, and you might define a differential strain as differential length over L, okay, and and if you do this quantity, differential change in resistance over the total resistance divided by differential change in length over the length, and for and by some means you can measure the change in resistance. So this quantity is called the gauge factor. This is defined as the gauge factor, okay. And if you know this expression right here, so from this, if there is a means for you to measure the change in resistance as the bar elongates, and so does the resistance that has been pasted on the bar, and if you could measure the change in resistance simply by dividing with this gauge factor, you can get the strain, okay. So once again, a strain gauge is a transducer. The purpose of this one is to measure strain. And how does it do so? It basically involves a resistance which would be pasted on a given specimen, and with the change in the length of the specimen over its original length, there would be changes in its resistance, and our job is to measure the change in the resistance, and that way we would be able to measure the change in the strain. Okay. But one more thing, we are also not good in measuring changes in resistance. Okay, directly measuring the changes in resistance would be difficult. Of course, we can take help of rheostat and all, but a strain gauge uses a much much elegant way, much more elegant way to do what we are trying to do here, which is basically measure the change in resistance and therefore measure the change in the length. Okay, so a strain gauge incorporates Wheatstone bridge. Now, are you familiar with Wheatstone bridge?
Yes, sir.
You are?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, that's it. I mean, the whatever theory we want to discuss about strain gauge is essentially using Wheatstone bridge. Okay. Nonetheless, we would go through the details of different ways we can use the Wheatstone bridge, and actually, you would also look into the mathematical part of the approach. Now, this is essentially your Wheatstone bridge, which is a combination. The full bridge is a combination of four resistances. Now, there are actual resistances and associated varying. That means if you call this one as a resistance, okay, this is a resistance with two wires coming out of it. But then if you connect that thing with wire and make it a part of your bigger circuit, okay, so those wires also contribute to the resistance. So we are here talking about that effective resistance R1 right here. Okay, and there are four of these. There is R1, there is R2, there is R, this one should be R4, and this one is R3. And to this, you apply, and please forgive my poor drawing because I'm trying to do that on a computer screen, uh, and I would expect a better drawing from you. You can take help of internet, of course, or maybe even your textbook. Achha. So to this, I'm applying a voltage, and this thing I'm calling VEX, the externally applied voltage. And between R1 and R2, and between R4 and R3, if I take two different points, the difference in the voltages between these 2 points, let's call it VCH, where CH stands for change. Okay. So this is our, what we essentially do is we measure the change in this voltage. Okay. And that should actually enable us to measure the change in the resistance. Which again, with the help of gauge factor, should give us the value of the strain, which is the change in length per unit original length. Now, one thing, although a strain gauge is not restricted to only measuring elastic strain, in our experiment, in today's experiment, we would be limiting ourselves to elastic strain, which would mean the order of magnitude of the strain is 0.001. Okay, so that is essentially, you can think of the elastic limit. So that the maximum value of strain that you might encounter today is of this order, and actually it represents the strain in mu s microstrain, which is which basically means 10 to the power minus 6, which is a ratio of two numbers. So change in length to original length is 10 to the power minus 6. It's of that order. So this is going to be our unit for the day. Okay. So one thing, the Wheatstone bridge initially is supposed to be balanced. And what do we mean by a balanced Wheatstone bridge? Is the ratio in a given series circuit. Imagine you are not using a voltmeter to measure the voltage right here. Okay, you are employing a voltmeter. You are supposed to employ a voltmeter, but imagine that voltmeter is not there. So R1 and R2 are in series, and together they are in parallel with R3 and R4. So this ratio R1 to R2 is supposed to be same as R4 to R3. Okay. Now, when it is balanced, you can imagine if I1 is the current through R1, R2, and I2 is the current through R3, R4, then then the voltage then VCH is essentially I1 is basically VEX divided by R1 plus R2, and similarly I2 is VEX divided by R3 plus R4. And difference in the voltage is you see, this is the plus side and this is the minus side. If I imagine the minus side is 0, so at how much higher voltage you'd expect it to be to the left of R2? So it should be R2, so it is Vx times R2 times I1, which is R1 plus R2 divided by, so Vx times R1 by R2 is I1, that times R2. Okay, so that is the voltage. If I imagine at this node the voltage is 0, and similarly over here it should be minus R3 times R3 plus R4. Okay, now if the system is balanced, this should tell you that R1 by R1 plus R2 equals R4 divided by R3 plus R4, and later you can write it to be R2 divided by R1 plus R2 equals R3 divided by R3 plus R4. And that would basically mean that when it is balanced, then this VCH is 0. Okay. And if by some means one of the resistances change, then if by some means one of the resistances change, then we would expect a change in the voltage, and that change, from that change in the voltage, we should be able to figure out the change in the resistance. Okay. So to that part, for the next part, we would actually simplify the problem, and let us assume that all the resistances are of the same value. It is not a necessary condition. I mean, you can also work out the math if each of them are different, only obeying the condition, this thing. Okay. But only for simplifying the problem, I'm just assuming this thing. Okay. That all the resistances have the same value. Now, this is what I'm trying to draw it as much accurate as possible. This is what a strain gauge resistance looks like. Okay. So basically, this is where you would be attaching your wires okay to this uh, wide regions, okay, and these narrow regions basically contribute to your so these wider regions are the most conductive part, and these narrower regions are basically what contributes to the resistance of the strain gauge. Okay. uh, so one thing is essentially uh, in this direction it doesn't uh, capture the effect of straining doesn't capture the effect of strain. In the vertical direction, it captures the effect of strain. And why so? Uh, Imagine there is a cantilever beam. If we apply a tip load, you know that that gives you a deformation of PL cube divided by 3EI. Quite a bit of deflection if you exactly calculate the value. Okay. But you know uh, that the beam is still within the elastic limit. If you calculate the bending stress, you would see that the stresses are well within elastic limit. So the stress and strains are not huge, but it has deflected. The maximum deflection could be a substantial value in bending. Whereas if you are thinking of an axial elongation, the elongation itself is uh, is directly related to strain. So it is essentially strain times the total length. Okay. And to cause the same amount of deflection, you'd need, uh, to same amount of deflection, you'd get much higher strain in this case as compared to this situation right here. Okay. So imagine if a rod is elongating in this direction, and if you take the strain gauge, okay, and let's say this is how you attach it, okay, where the narrower dimension essentially means the direction in which, so you see this strips, narrow strips right here, in the vertical direction they actually elongate. Okay. If the in the horizontal direction, if the strain gauge is supposed to expand, in that case this narrow strips, they only bend. Okay. So the object on which it may have been pasted, okay, that may be elongating in the direction in which these strips bend. So the strain gauge itself may be expanding with the object itself. Okay. However, because the strips are only bending, not elongating, they are not straining as much. And because of that, how do we know that when the they are bending, they are not straining as much? Because if they were straining as much, okay, you would be needing quite a bit of force, right? You can take a metallic or plastic scale and try to bend it. You'd see you can very easily cause quite a bit of deformation in bending very easily with a very tiny amount of force. Whereas it is practically impossible to cause that much elongation uh, in the axial direction. এই পার্টটা কি বলছি বোঝা যাচ্ছে যে বেন্ডিং can be done quite easily as compared to axial deformation.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the other point that I'm trying to make is that in bending you might deflect an object, okay, but that deflection itself is not the strain. That deflection itself per unit length is not the strain. Okay. And as you might know, for a cantilever beam, the strain and stresses are not constants. For instance, the bending moment itself is changing from the free end to the fixed end. And also the stresses and strains are not only changing with bending moment, but they are also changing along the cross section. And nowhere is it beyond the elastic limit. Okay. But you can imagine the amount by which you can deflect a plastic scale in bending in a cantilever mode. That much of deflection is surely going to impose a plastic zone when if you could apply that much force in the axial direction. Sorry, if you could apply that much deflection in the axial direction. Okay, that is well beyond, that would be well beyond elastic limit. Okay, so the point is in bending that the actual deflection is not the representative of the strain. Okay, that actual deflection divided by the length is not the strain, whereas in axial deflection that's what it is. Okay, so if I take this strain gauge right here and paste it on an object, okay, uh, with this horizontal side oriented with the direction of elongation, so these tiny strips they bend, okay, and they do not strain as much, and as a result the changes in the resistance and the changes in the voltage are not as much visible. Okay, so practically in this direction, in the horizontal direction, it doesn't sense any strain. Whereas if I were to attach the strain gauge with the vertical direction of this configuration, vertical direction facing the direction of the elongation, okay, or compression. So in that direction, if the strain gauge has to deflect or expand, it can only do so by the elongation of these narrow strips right here. And because these narrow strips only elongate, they experience strain, and as a result a change in resistance. Okay, and in this direction it is sensitive to strain in the vertical direction, and in the horizontal direction it is not. Okay, so do you think now you would be able to answer why a strain gauge is sensitive to strain in one direction but not in the other direction? Do you think you'd be put that into words?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So now let us talk about quarter bridge. Acha, before going there, let's look at the gauge factor. Now, what do you think this ratio is? Is it equal to 1? That is, if there is 1% change in length, is it 1% change in resistance? Actually, it cannot be even 1%, because in that case it would be beyond elastic limit. Let's say if it is 2 in 10,000 change in length, is it also the same change in resistance? So for that, we would need to look into the expression for the resistance itself. So as we discussed, it is resistivity times length divided by the cross-section area. And if we do this, ln R equals ln rho, ln L, and ln A. So while I'm taking this differentiation, so you can see two things. Acha, sorry, one mistake.
Minus.
Yes. So as you can see, it's not only the change in length, but the change in resistivity and the change in area of cross section that matters. I'll come to this one at last, but can you show some light on this one? Can you tell me what is the relation between this quantity and this quantity? You don't know what is the relation because of mechanical strain? I'm talking about a situation where at two ends you are applying forces, but this lateral surface is traction free. It means no forces are being applied on this surface, which means the lateral surface is free to expand and contract. In that situation, how would the cross-section area change?
Sir, the ratio of longitudinal strain to lateral strain is the Poisson ratio.
Okay. You are saying dr by r divided by dl by l is new? Are you saying this is new?
Yes, sir.
Or are you
Something like
saying this is minus new?
minus
Minus
mu.
new.
Yes.
Minus new. So area, now not necessarily the wires in the strain gauge are cylindrical. It doesn't have to be. But so the radius thing might not apply everywhere. But what is about to apply is the area thing. The cross-section area, whether it is h times b or it is pi r squared, every time what I'm about to write is going to be true. So dA, so I can write ln A is ln of a constant, which is a constant, twice ln R. Therefore, dA by A equals twice dr divided by R. Simply derivative of this quantity is 0, right? Which means this quantity is simply this. Would you agree to that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So here comes the final expression for the gauge factor, which is dr, by definition dr divided by r, dl divided by l, 1 plus twice nu. Okay. So if it is 0.25, typically for metals it is between 2 and 3. So this thing becomes nearly 1.5. But plus this quantity. Don't assume that the material property is going to remain a constant as the geometry is being strained. Now, this quantity, of course, is small, and typically greater than 0. Okay. So it's small, yet you cannot simply ignore this one. Okay. I mean, you can take simply 1 plus twice nu as the value, but if you calibrate the gauge factor, calibrate this ratio for a range of strain, that value is possibly not a constant, and some variations are observed. So a calibrated gauge factor is required. Okay. So this may be small, but maybe not negligible. Okay. It is typically greater than 0, and at times also less than 0. Okay. So let it be there. Okay. Now let's talk about a quarter cycle. Sorry, quarter bridge. But we know what is the order of magnitude of gauge factor, right? It's about 1.5 or something. Now, what is a quarter bridge? A quarter bridge is when only one of the 4 resistances is a strain gauge. So earlier we drew a strain gauge, right? So which is basically weird shape like this, with ends a little bit thicker. So as if they act as rigid components or like a fixed joint. So this is what a strain gauge is, and strain gauge is typically glued to a membrane, which would later be pasted on a component. So imagine this is our resistance R2, which is in the quarter bridge circuit. So only one of the resistances is placed on the one of the resistances is acts like a strain gauge. So let's look at the expression for V change. Now it is no longer R2 plus, but R2 plus delta R. Over here, it is R1 plus R2 plus delta R. Okay. Now, if delta R, in the final expression, if delta R appears with either R1 or R2 or anything, we would simply use that this is much smaller compared to any of the resistances. Why is that important, or why is that significant for us? Is the fact is, you see, this is a gauge factor. What is this ratio? dr by r to dl by l, which is essentially the strain. So the change in resistance per unit resistance is of the order of strain. And as we discussed, we are going to be well within elastic limit. The maximum strain value that you would encounter is of the order of 10 to the power minus 3. So the point is, even the changes in the resistance are of the same order. By the way, we would be measuring this change in voltage, from which we will gauge the change in resistance, and then we would calculate the strain from the gauge factor. And then this side remains the same. And from the balanced condition, this is true. R1, R3. This needs to be substituted at a later stage. So can you write down the expression for VCH in this case? You can actually write delta R2 equals GF times epsilon times R2. We can substitute in the end the expression for GF times epsilon times R2. So let's see what sort of expressions do we get. You see in the denominator, R1 and R2 going to remain in their position. So in the end, we can neglect delta R, and then R2, R3, delta R, R3, delta R, R4, R2, R4, minus R3, R1, minus R2, R3, minus delta R, R3. Now I can cancel delta R, R3 with delta R, R3 over here. I can cancel R2, R3 with R2, R3 right here. But I can also cancel R1, R3 with R2, R4 right here. Okay. So in the end, I can write it is Vx times delta R times sorry. So, and if I substitute for delta R with this expression, so I have the gauge factor times epsilon times this quantity whole squared. I'm also using the fact that R4 divided by R3 plus R4 is essentially R2 divided by R1 plus R2. Okay. Now in this expression, if I substitute R2 equals R1, that would mean VCH is V external times the gauge factor times epsilon times 1 by 4. Okay. So in this expression, you can see that the change in voltage is directly proportional to the strain. And this V external and the gauge factor, we do not have any control once we choose a given circuit and choose an input voltage right there. But this factor, the 1/4 in the front, that we have some control. And with the modification of the bridge from the quarter bridge, that we can get higher sensitivity. That means we can make this 1/4 to half or anything else. So why this one is called a quarter bridge? Only 1/4 of the circuit is used as a strain gauge. Now, whatever has been discussed so far, is it clear to everyone? এই অবধি কি বোঝা যাচ্ছে? সবাই বুঝতে পারছো এই জায়গাটা?
স্যার সেকেন্ড লাইনটা আমরা ডেল্টা আর কে নেগলেক্ট করে দিলাম ওটা।
ডেল্টা আর কে নেগলেক্ট করলাম কেন? দেখো দেখো গেজ ফ্যাক্টর হচ্ছে 1.5, ঠিক আছে, মানে অফ দ্য অর্ডার অফ 1, আর স্ট্রেন হচ্ছে অফ দ্য অর্ডার অফ 10⁻³ এবার দেখো এই ডেল্টা R2 তার এক্সপ্রেশনটা খেয়াল করে দেখো, ডেল্টা R2 is gauge factor which is of the order of 1, epsilon which is less than 10⁻³ times R2, মানে delta R is smaller than any of the resistances. That's the point. Delta R is may not be an infinitesimal quantity, but it's still a small quantity of the order of 10⁻³. So when you have this expression R1 plus R2 plus delta R, of course I cannot do that same exercise in the numerator. You see, in the numerator ultimately it turns out to be R4 times delta R, right? Kintu in the denominator it turns out to be R1 plus R2 plus delta R. When you have much larger quantity being summed with a smaller quantity, মানে ধরো তুমি 1000 এর সঙ্গে 1 যোগ করছো, না 1001, সেটাকে রাফলি তুমি 1000 ধরছো। That's the idea.
Yes, sir, understood.
Okay. Now let's move on to half bridge. হাফ ব্রিজে কি হবে? আচ্ছা, এই এক্সপ্রেশনটা একটু মার্ক করে রেখো যে কত এলো। হাফ ব্রিজে কি হবে? আমরা আইদার R1, ভালো করে দেখো, আইদার R1 অথবা R3, ওকে, you would make either R1 or R3 as the strain gauge, as our second strain gauge. আমি এখানে শুধু R1 কে একটা স্ট্রেন গেজ হিসেবে নিয়ে দেখাচ্ছি, ওকে। সো দিস ইজ আ স্ট্রেন গেজ 2, সেকেন্ড স্ট্রেন গেজ। স্ট্রেন গেজ বলা উচিত না, দিস ইজ লাইক দ্য কি বলা উচিত, ওকে, স্ট্রেন গেজই বলা উচিত। তো so let's say that is the second strain gauge. So R2 is the first one and this one is the second strain gauge. এবার ধরে নাও তোমার একটা সিম্পলি সাপোর্টেড বিম আছে, যেমন আমাদের এক্সপেরিমেন্টে হবে, and that may be সিম্পলি সাপোর্টেড মানে হচ্ছে একদিকে পিন আর একদিকে হচ্ছে তোমার রোলার সাপোর্ট। আমাদের এখানে দুদিকেই হচ্ছে রোলার সাপোর্ট আমাদের এক্সপেরিমেন্টে। তাতে করেও জিনিসটা আমাদের থাকবে হচ্ছে একটা সিম্পলি সাপোর্টেড বিম। কেন থাকবে? বিকজ অলদো দিজ আর রোলার্স, বাট there is some friction, and that friction, okay, when there is substantial load being applied to the beam, there is sufficient friction to prevent any horizontal motion. The only reason you put a pin over here is to prevent any horizontal motion. তো আমাদের এই horizontal motion এর কোনো অ্যাক্সিডেন্ট হওয়ার সম্ভাবনা নেই, সুতরাং we use roller on either side. ওকে, এবার কি করা হচ্ছে, ধরো এর লেংথ হচ্ছে L, তুমি এই গ্যাপটা জানো, লেটস কল ইট স্মল L1, ঠিক আছে, আর বাকি দুদিকে it is small L2 and small L2, same distance. So the point is L is L1 plus twice L2, and what do is we apply known loads W and W and make it a 4-point bending situation. তো এই 4-point bending situation এ shear force diagram কি হবে? ফার্স্ট অফ অল তো আমাকে ইকুইলিব্রিয়াম ক্যালকুলেট করতে হবে, যাতে করে আমি R1 আর R2 পাবো, অ্যান্ড 4-point বেন্ডিং এ আমি পেয়ে যাবো এখানে W and W for equilibrium. So this is the free body diagram. Okay. এবার হচ্ছে shear force diagram. এদিকটা প্লাস, এখান থেকে এই অবধি 0, এখানে আবার নেগেটিভ, এখানে আবার 0। সো এখানে W প্লাস, এখানে W মাইনাস। shear force diagram, bending moment diagramটা কি হবে? এখানে হয়ে যাবে হচ্ছে WL2, এখানে কোনো চেঞ্জ হবে না, and then over here again 0। এই যে মাঝখানে রিজিয়নটা যেখানে কোনো চেঞ্জ হবে না, where the bending moment remains a constant or a stationary, where the shear force is 0, what type of bending do you see in this part?
The pure bending.
Huh? Pure
Pure
bending.
bending.
Pure bending আর let's say impure bending, তার মধ্যে ডিফারেন্স কি? পিওর বেন্ডিং এ কি হয়, স্ট্রেসটা কি রকম হবে পিওর বেন্ডিং এ? পিওর বেন্ডিং এ কোনো শিয়ার স্ট্রেস থাকবে কি? শিয়ার স্ট্রেস
না,
ডিউ টু বেন্ডিং?
জাস্টিস থাকবে না, শুধু বেন্ডিং মোমেন্ট।
শিয়ার ফোর্সের কথা বলছি না, শিয়ার স্ট্রেসের কথা বলছি। দেখো শিয়ার স্ট্রেসের যে এক্সপ্রেশনটা টাও, আর একটা এরকম এক্সপ্রেশন আছে না, ভি টাইমস কিউ ডিভাইডেড বাই বিআই অর সামথিং, মনে পড়ছে?
হ্যাঁ স্যার।
এই যে শিয়ার ফোর্স, সেই শিয়ার ফোর্সটা যদি 0 হয়, থ্রু আউট দ্য ক্রস সেকশন শিয়ার স্ট্রেস উড বি ট্রিভিয়ালি 0। তার মানে আমি যদি 2 ডাইমেনশনাল স্ট্রেস ম্যাট্রিক্সটা ভাবি, টাওটা 0, tau xy and tau yx is 0, sigma xx is sigma bending, আর এই ডিরেকশনে কোনো স্ট্রেস নেই, ট্র্যাকশন ফ্রি, তাহলে এটাও 0। তার মানে আমার স্ট্রেস স্টেটটা হচ্ছে শুধু এইটা। বোঝা যাচ্ছে কি হলো? এইবার তোমরা স্ট্রেস ম্যাট্রিক্স ফর্মে কখনো লেখনি না? সো 2D তে স্ট্রেস টেন্সর ইজ লাইক দিস: সিগমা xx, সিগমা yy, tau xy, tau yx, and tau xy is tau yx because of angular momentum balance. ওকে, আর যদি স্ট্রেস স্টেটটা এরকম হয়, স্ট্রেনটা কিরকম হবে? অফকোর্স গামা xy উড বি 0, এপসিলন x xx উড বি sigma b divided by e, and epsilon yy and also the strain in z direction, এই ডিরেকশনটা হচ্ছে x আর y আর z তুমি তোমার মতো ধরে নাও। In both cases it should be nu times epsilon xx. ওকে, এবার আমরা স্ট্রেন গেজটাকে লাগাবো কিভাবে? ধরে যাক এটা হচ্ছে স্ট্রেন গেজের ক্যাপিটাল এক্স ডিরেকশন, আর এটা হচ্ছে স্ট্রেন গেজের ক্যাপিটাল ওয়াই ডিরেকশন। এটা হচ্ছে আমাদের বিমের স্মল এক্স ডিরেকশন। আমরা ক্যাপিটাল এক্সটাকেও এই ডিরেকশনই অ্যালাইন করব, ঠিক আছে? এবার দেখো একটা বিম যখন এই লোডিং এ বেন্ড করবে, সে বেন্ড করবে এইভাবে, রোলার আর পিন জয়েন্টে the deflection should be 0, the slope is non-zero, এরকম ভাবে ডিফর্ম করবে। তাতে বোঝা যাচ্ছে যে বটম সারফেসটা, so this is if this is the elastica, এটা বোঝা যাচ্ছে যে বটম সারফেসটা ইলংগেট করবে আর টপ সারফেসটা কম্প্রেস করবে। ওকে, তাহলে আমাকে যদি একটা স্ট্রেন গেজ লাগাতে হয় আর আমি যদি ইলংগেশন মাপতে চাই, তাহলে আমি স্ট্রেন গেজটাকে লাগাবো হচ্ছে এইখানে বটম সারফেসে with the capital X direction aligned with the small x direction. এখন দেখো ল্যাটারাল ডিরেকশনেও স্ট্রেন আছে, ট্র্যাকশন ফ্রি, ধরে রাখার কেউ নেই, কিন্তু যেহেতু এক্স ডিরেকশনে স্ট্রেস আছে তাই ওয়াই আর জেড ডিরেকশনে স্ট্রেন থাকবে। কিন্তু সেই স্ট্রেনটা স্ট্রেন গেজে ক্যাপচার্ড হবে না, কারণ আমরা আগেই দেখিয়েছি যে ওয়াই ডিরেকশনের ডিফর্মেশনটাকে স্ট্রেন গেজ ক্যাপচার করবে না, ক্যাপিটাল ওয়াই ডিরেকশনে, ক্যাপিটাল এক্স ডিরেকশনটাই ক্যাপচার করবে। So let's say this is our strain gauge 1. Okay. এবার আমরা স্ট্রেন গেজ 2টা কোথায় লাগাবো? স্ট্রেন গেজ 2টাকে আমরা লাগিয়ে দেবো হচ্ছে উপরের দিকে। তার মানে স্ট্রেন গেজ 2 would be subjected to compression. Strain gauge 1 would be under tension and strain gauge 2 would be under compression. Okay. The amount of strain on both the faces are going to be same. For a prismatic cross section, it goes from plus epsilon max to minus epsilon max. So only the strain in the x direction is to be measured. Okay. Y direction এর স্ট্রেনের কোনো এফেক্ট থাকবে না প্রথমত। দ্বিতীয়ত হচ্ছে যে দুটো স্ট্রেন গেজের স্ট্রেনের ভ্যালুটা সেম হবে, নিচেরটার ক্ষেত্রে টেনশন হবে, উপরটার ক্ষেত্রে কম্প্রেশন হবে। এবার এই কম্প্রেসিভ সাইডে স্ট্রেন গেজ অ্যাটাচ করবার জন্য আই ক্যান চুজ আইদার R1 or R3. ওকে, আমি এখানে R1 এর ডেরিভেশনটা করে দেখাচ্ছি। তোমাদের জন্য অ্যাসাইনমেন্ট হচ্ছে, this is your first assignment, consider R3 is the second strain gauge and then calculate the expression for the voltage change with a half bridge circuit. Okay. I'm showing you the same thing but with R1 as a strain gauge 2, but your assignment is to consider R3 as the second strain gauge and get the expression for VCH. Okay. আচ্ছা, এবার দেখা যাক R1 কে সেকেন্ড স্ট্রেন গেজ ধরে কি এক্সপ্রেশন আসে। এই রিলেশনটা R1 R3 equals R2 R4, that is still true. যেহেতু the strain gauge 1 and strain gauge 2 are subjected to same amount of strain, so delta R1 is R1 plus gauge factor times epsilon times R1, and delta R2 is sorry. Delta R2 is gauge factor times the strain times R2, and this one is a minus. So now you have this expression for VCH, which is R2 plus delta R2 divided by R1 plus R2 times minus and here it is still R3 plus R4 plus R3 divided by R4 plus R3 times V external. Again, assume R1 equals R2, which basically means this goes to 0, and the final expression for VCH is you see R2 plus R1, R2 divided by R1 plus R2 equals actually R3 divided by R4 plus R3. So simply subtract that portion. So you have VCH equals Vx times delta R2 divided by R1 plus R2, which basically means Vx times, now substitute the expression for delta R2, gauge factor times epsilon, and R2 divided by R1 plus R2. But we have already incorporated R1 equals R2, which is half of this quantity. The externally applied voltage, the gauge factor times the strain, and then this half. So if you compare this expression with the quarter bridge, okay, you see for the same externally applied voltage, the voltage change is twice as much sensitive to a given amount of strain as compared to, so in case of half bridge, it is twice as much sensitive to strain as compared to a quarter bridge. Okay. Is this part clear? এই পার্টটা কি বোঝা গেল?
কোন ব্রিজটা বেশি সেনসিটিভ হবে বললে?
হাফ ব্রিজ সার্কিটটা বেশি সেনসিটিভ হবে। কেন বেশি সেনসিটিভ হবে?
এটা হাফ আছে বলে, আর ওখানে 1/4 ছিল।
হ্যাঁ, ওখানে 1/4 ছিল, এখানে হাফ হলো। ওখানে 1/4 ছিল, আমি একটা রেজিস্ট্যান্সকে নিয়েছিলাম। এবার দেখো, এই অ্যাটাচমেন্টটা বুদ্ধি করে করতে হবে। আমি যদি স্ট্রেন গেজ 1 আর স্ট্রেন গেজ 2 দুটোকেই নিচের দিকে লাগিয়ে দিই, ঠিক আছে, তাহলে R1 and R2 would change the same with the same value, with the same percentage it would change with same sign, and ultimately the value of R1 and R2 would remain the same. Not remain the same. The value of R1 would be same as value of R2 even after the strain. So the thing is, there would be no voltage change. আমি যদি দুটো স্ট্রেন গেজ দিয়ে নিচের দিকে লাগিয়ে দিই, ঠিক আছে, তাহলে কিন্তু হবে না। একটাকে নিচে লাগাতে হবে, একটাকে উপরে লাগাতে হবে। R3 ক্ষেত্রেও তাই। যদি আমি R3 নিই, তাহলে R3 কে উপরে লাগাতে হবে, R1 কে সরি R2 কে যদি আমি নিচে লাগাই, R3 কে উপরে লাগাতে হবে, ঠিক আছে। এবং আমরা যেটা দেখলাম যে ওই সামনে যে ফ্যাক্টরটা, সেই ফ্যাক্টরটা 1/4 থেকে হাফ হয়ে গেছে। তাতে আমরা দেখলাম যে হাফ ব্রিজ ইজ টুয়াইস অ্যাজ মাচ সেন্সিটিভ টু স্ট্রেন অ্যাজ কম্পেয়ার টু কোয়ার্টার ব্রিজ। ইনফ্যাক্ট আমাদের এক্সপেরিমেন্টে আমরা হাফ ব্রিজই ইউজ করছি, আমরা যে সার্কিটটা ইউজ করছি এটা হাফ ব্রিজই, যদিও সেটা বোঝার কিছু উপায় নেই, কারণ আমাদের যে ইনস্ট্রুমেন্ট সেটা হচ্ছে ডাইরেক্টলি আমাদের স্ট্রেনের ভ্যালুটাই দিয়ে দেবে, এবং স্ট্রেনের ভ্যালুটা কত আসছে একটু খেয়াল করবো, ঠিক আছে, কোন অর্ডার অফ ম্যাগনিটিউডে আসছে সেটা একটু খেয়াল করবো। আচ্ছা, বুঝতেই পারছো এর এক্সটেন্ডেড ভার্সন কি হতে পারে, আ ফুল ব্রিজ, যেখানে এই হাফ ফ্যাক্টরটাও আসবে না। ইট উইল বি সিম্পলি VCH ইকুয়ালস V external times the gauge factor times the strain. সেটা কখন হবে? যখন চারটে রেজিস্ট্যান্সই স্ট্রেন গেজ হবে, এবং সেখানে আমাকে কি করতে হবে, R2 R2 আর R4 আর R4 কে লাগাতে হবে হচ্ছে একই দিকে, আর R1 আর R3 কে আরেক দিকে লাগাতে হবে, আরেকটা সারফেসে পেস্ট করতে হবে, ঠিক আছে? তো সেরকম ভাবে যদি আমরা করি, ওকে, ফুল সার্কিট, ফুল ব্রিজ, then you would have the maximum sensitivity to the strain, ঠিক আছে? তো যেহেতু আমরা আজকের এক্সপেরিমেন্টে হাফ ব্রিজই করব, সেই জন্য আমি ফার্দার ডেরিভেশনে যাচ্ছি না। ইটস নট আ ভেরি ডিফিকাল্ট ডেরিভেশন। You can simply put the idea that R4 and R2, you can simply get the delta R3 and delta R4, okay, assuming delta R4 would be positive and delta R3 would be negative, okay, and if you substitute all of those, you'd get the idea what sort of expression do you get. তো এখানে আমরা থিওরি পার্টটা স্টপ করতেই পারি। আই ডোন্ট থিঙ্ক দেয়ার ইজ আ লট টু কভার হিয়ার, আনলেস অফ কোর্স ইউ হ্যাভ এনি কোয়েশ্চেন। Okay, so we'll come back to discuss further once we have seen the experiment video.
Welcome to everybody. Today we are going to demonstrate an experiment for strain measurement by electric.
তোমরা কি স্যারের কথা শুনতে পাচ্ছ?
হ্যাঁ স্যার।
ওকে, যদি কেউ শুনতে না পাও, আমার মনে হয় একটু হেডফোন লাগিয়ে নিলে শুনতে সুবিধা হবে। আচ্ছা, বলে দিই কয়েকটা জিনিস। এখানে দেখবে অনেক রকম সিস্টেম ইউজ করা হচ্ছে, যেমন হচ্ছে যে যখন বিমের ডাইমেনশন আসবে সব মিলিমিটারে আসবে, যখন ওয়েটগুলো লাগানো হবে দেখবে সব পাউন্ডে বলা হচ্ছে, ঠিক আছে? তাহলে পাউন্ড ওয়েটকে কিভাবে কেজি ওয়েটে কনভার্ট করতে হয়, মাল্টিপ্লাই করতে হয় 0.4536 দিয়ে, 0.4536 দিয়ে মাল্টিপ্লাই করলে ইউ উইল গেট কেজি ওয়েট। কেজি ওয়েটকে নিউটনে কনভার্ট করতে হয় কিভাবে, 1 কেজি ইন্টু 9.8 উড বি নিউটন, ঠিক আছে? নিউটনে কনভার্ট করলে, এবং যে সমস্ত ডাইমেনশনগুলো মিলিমিটারে থাকবে, আলটিমেটলি যদি তুমি 1 নিউটনকে 1 মিলিমিটার স্কোয়ার দিয়ে ডিভাইড করো, ইউ গেট 1 মেগাপাস্কাল, ওকে, অ্যান্ড দ্যাট ইজ আ স্ট্যান্ডার্ড ইউনিট অফ স্ট্রেস ইন মেকানিক্যাল ইঞ্জিনিয়ারিং, ঠিক আছে? আমরা যে অর্ডারে স্ট্রেস নিয়ে কাজ করি মেটালের ক্ষেত্রে, দ্যাট ইজ অফ দ্য অর্ডার অফ এমপিএ, মানে 10, 15, 20, 22, 50 MPa is the order of magnitude of stress that we work with. If it goes beyond, let's say, 200 or 250 MPa, then it would probably be in the plastic zone. Okay? So to be in the elastic zone, it is typically of the order of 50, 60 maximum MPa. তো কেন এটা ইম্পর্টেন্ট বলছি, তোমরা এই এক্সপেরিমেন্টের শেষে দেখবে তোমাদের জন্য কি টাস্ক আছে, কি করণীয় আছে। তোমাদের আলটিমেটলি যেটা করতে হবে, যে ওয়েটগুলো লাগানো হচ্ছে, সো দ্য অবজেক্টিভ অফ দ্য এক্সপেরিমেন্ট ইজ যে ওয়েটগুলো আমরা লাগাচ্ছি, ঠিক আছে, আমরা কি সেই ওয়েটগুলোকে প্রেডিক্ট করতে পারছি ফ্রম দ্য স্ট্রেন? মানে ধরো আমি স্ট্রেন গেজ থেকে স্ট্রেন পেলাম, সেখান থেকে আমি স্ট্রেস ক্যালকুলেট করলাম। এই যে স্ট্রেস ক্যালকুলেট করলাম, এই স্ট্রেসটা হচ্ছে ওই যে পোর্শনটা আমরা দেখছি যে পিওর বেন্ডিং হবে, সেই জায়গার পুরো জায়গাটাতেই, পিওর বেন্ডিং এর পুরো জায়গাটাতেই আমাদের হচ্ছে স্ট্রেসটা কনস্ট্যান্ট, কারণ বেন্ডিং মোমেন্টটা কনস্ট্যান্ট, মানে it's not constant across the cross section but along the length it is constant. For a given height in the cross section it is constant across the length. Okay, because the sigma b is my by I, or m divided by z, the section modulus. So that section modulus remaining constant, the maximum stress value, okay, that would be simply m divided by, and since m is a constant, the bending moment is constant. এবার এই যে স্ট্রেনটা আমরা মেজার করছি, আমরা তো মেজার করছি টপ আর বটম সারফেস, মানে ম্যাক্সিমাম স্ট্রেনটাকেই আমরা মেজার করছি। যেহেতু ম্যাক্সিমাম স্ট্রেনটাকে আমরা মেজার করছি, ক্রস সেকশনের ভেতরে যেখানে জিরো হচ্ছে সেখানে করছি না, অন্য কোথাও করছি না, আমরা ম্যাক্সিমাম স্ট্রেসটাই ইয়ংস মডুলাস দিয়ে মাল্টিপ্লাই করলে আমরা ম্যাক্সিমাম স্ট্রেসটাই পাবো, এবং ওই সেকশন মডুলাস দিয়ে ডিভাইড করে সেটাকে ম্যাক্সিমাম স্ট্রেসটাকে সেকশন মডুলাস দিয়ে ডিভাইড করে আমরা পাবো হচ্ছে বেন্ডিং মোমেন্ট। ঠিক আছে, সেই বেন্ডিং মোমেন্ট সেখান থেকে আমরা হচ্ছে বাকি যে ডাইমেনশনগুলো বিমের ওই L1 L2 L3 এটসেট্রা জানা থাকলে আমরা হচ্ছে যে কতটা লোড অ্যাপ্লাই করা হচ্ছে সেই লোডটাও পেতে পারি। ঠিক আছে, তার মানে আইডিয়াটা কি, আমি একটা বিমের মধ্যে স্ট্রেন গেজ লাগালাম, তাতে একটা আননোন লোড আসতে পারে, কিন্তু ওই স্ট্রেনের ভ্যালুটা থেকে আমি সেই লোডটাকে গেস করতে পারছি কি, এটাই হচ্ছে আমাদের আজকের এক্সপেরিমেন্টের মেন অবজেক্টিভ। মানে বাই দ্য টাইম তুমি ক্যালকুলেশনগুলো করবে তুমি সেটাই দেখবে। ঠিক আছে, তো আপাতত তোমরা এক্সপেরিমেন্টটা দেখো। ওকে, and probably a few things I want to clarify at the end of the experiment. আর তোমাদের যদি কোশ্চেন থাকে তো ঠিক, ভালো কথা। ওকে,
Where resistance strain gauge. So first we observe the theta on which we measure the strain. This is a simply supported beam. Simply supported beam is actually supported on two rolling contact, and this beam is loaded symmetrically with respect to two support at 2 points within its span. So the distance from this support to its nearest loading point and corresponding distance from this support to its nearest loading point are equal. At the same time, these two are symmetrically placed with respect to the midpoint of the beam, mid-plane of the beam. Now, under this kind of loading, if we put equal load at these two loading position, then the portion between these two loading will experience a pure bending. Bending moment will remain constant. As a result, the expected deformation shape of the beam between these 2 points will be a circular arc. That is why the strain will remain constant between this point and this point. Everywhere in the beam, the axial strain will remain in the same value. So, on the surface and the bottom surface, top surface and bottom surface, we will attach two electric wear resistant strain gauge, and this attachment can be possible at any axial location between these two, because in that case the value of strain we will get will be same. Now, the dimension of this setup, the thickness of this beam is 6.1 millimeter. Thickness, that means depth, along the depth. This thickness is 6.1 millimeter. Width of the beam in transverse direction, it is 40.3 millimeter. And load to load distance, this is 300 millimeter. So, what is a strain gauge? As discussed in the theoreticals, strain gauge is a kind of transducer where on the increment or decrement of a electric resistant gauge, the strain on the increment or decrement of the length of the electric resistance gauge, the induced voltage differs. That is when from a null point, the length of the strain gauge is increased, a certain kind of voltage is induced, and from if it is decreased, other kind of voltage is induced. Now, strain gauge can act both under compression and tension. Now, a close look at the strain gauge can be possible from this and spare beam with an attached strain gauge. Here, just in the both upper side and the lower side, upper surface and lower surface of the beam, we have attached the strain gauge because it will create the half bridge configuration in a Wheatstone bridge as discussed in the theory. Now, what is the advantage of half bridge configuration? First of all, first advantage is that if we attach one bridge, one strain gauge, then the value of voltage will induced for per unit strain will be exactly half of the value of voltage induced per unit strain in the present case, that is the half bridge case. Half bridge case is called with two strain gauges. If there is single strain gauge, that will be called quarter bridge case. So, in half bridge case, sensitivity, that is the value of voltage per unit strain, will be double for compared to the case of a quarter bridge case. Now, with this configuration in hand, we are attaching these two strain gauge foils with a strain indicator. Within this strain indicator, this is a strain indicator, pyrodynamic is the make, and its gauge factor is 2. This strain indicator, in this strain indicator, there will be a Wheatstone bridge arrangement inside the box, and these two strain gauges will be attached to the Wheatstone bridge circuit at the location of two resistances. Now, as this beam will be loaded, now the beam will bend, and as a result, one surface will take a shape of concave arc, another surface will take a shape of convex arc. That is why at one surface the fiber will be under compression, other surface the fiber will be under tension. Now, if we use this half bridge case, the arrangement with the help of this Wheatstone bridge circuit will be made in that way that the positive strain due to tension and negative strain due to compression, both will be added actually, value-wise added, and make the sensitivity twice compared to the case of half bridge case. Now, the system used here, this strain indicator system is used here in such a way that whatever strain will actually be induced here, that strain can be read directly. There will be no conversion. We will take this strain value against the loading values. Loading will be given with the help of a hanger. First, we will consider the hanger load is 1 pound. Then, at an incremental rate of 2 pound, we will increase the load, and then again we will decrease the load by 2 pound, and finally we will remove the hanger to get zero loading. So, we will start the experiment by mounting the hanger in the setup. Just kindly take the video. Now, these two hangers having weight 1 pound each has been loaded, has been attached to the beam, so that this beam has been loaded symmetrically at 2 points. At each point, loading is 1 pound. 25. So the reading is 25 microstrain. So this reading, the value will be obtained at 25 microstrain unit. That is 25 into 10 to the power minus 6 is the value of the strain. kindly take the value after it becomes steady. Okay. After a few moments, you will do. Now I will put. Now I will increase the loading by 2 pound at each loading location. Now at each point, the loading is 3 pound.
74.
So reading is 74. Now, total loading at each point is 5 pound.
123. 123.
Now the loading is total 7 pound at each loading point.
Two one was 171. 171.
Now the loading is 9 pound at each loading point.
170.
Now loading has been applied in ascending order, that is from 0 pound to 1 pound, then at a step of 2 pound, loading has been increased up to 9 pound at each loading location. Apply the load in decreasing order, that is, we will gradually decrease the load at the equal step in case of ascending order run. In ascending order, the same reading will be maintained in descending order. Now for 7 pound.
One 172.
Now you will decrease it further. Now the loading is 5 pound at each loading location.
So 124. 4.
Now the loading is 3 pound at each location. 25, 75. Now the system is completely unloaded. So this is all about experimental procedure. What we have to fill this table. Now in this type of strain indicator, we directly get the strain values as strain indicator reading in ascending order in one column, the right column, this is descending order. This meter constant is not used here. We'll keep this blank. Accordingly, we'll get the strain. You have to get this strain value as an average of this ascending order and descending order reading. So from this strain, we have to calculate the stress. From the simple relationship according to the Hooke's law, stress is equal to Young's modulus times corresponding strain for each reading. Now once we get this stress, this is the bending stress. So from this bending stress and from the geometry of the beam, which has been explained initially before the start of the experiment, we have to calculate the bending moment at the cross section where we are measuring the stress, strain, and eventually getting the value of stress. Now by applying relationship, bending moment M equal to stress sigma divided by section modulus. From this bending moment, we obtain the calculated value of P, that is from the bending moment and loading relationship from the bending moment diagram, we can obtain the value of P. So this P calculated value must be compared with the applied value which is given in the first column. And percentage error must be noted for each loading. Percentage error is the difference divided by P calculated. Difference means difference between the P calculated and the P applied divided by P calculated times 100. This is the percentage difference. After that, a graph has to be produced. Two graphs has to be produced. One for stress versus strain or loading versus strain, to check whether the experimental procedure remains in the linear range of the material model. And after that, one graph where percentage error versus P calculated has to be plotted. That will be a calibration curve. This is the experiment on strain measurement by electric wire resistant strain gauge. Thank you.
Do you have any queries regarding the experiment? If not, I have one information to share. The other one being a question that I have. One thing is, in order to fill up your instruction sheet, in case the information is given, use that. So I'm talking about the value of the Young's modulus. So which you can take for carbon steel to be 210 GPa, which is 210,000 MPa. Okay, and use that for calculating the stress and the bending moment, etc. So you have the strain, from that you can get the stress, and then you can have the corresponding bending moment. Simply divide by section modulus. Section modulus, I hope you can recall, it is h by 2 divide, sorry, it is actually I divided by h by 2, which gives you the maximum bending moment, sorry, the maximum bending stress. So for a rectangle, it is 1 by 2 12 b h cube, and then divide with h by 2, so it is basically 1 by 6 b h squared for a rectangular cross section. And this of course is E times epsilon. And from this, once you have the bending moment, you can have the relation between m proportional to p, where you know the distances from different distances L2 and L1, and p, or W rather. Okay, so first of all, as we discussed earlier, you need to get them in Newton. Okay, so they may be given in pound, so that is this much kg weight, and that basically is Newton. So if you get the forces in Newton and dimensions in millimeter, so you get the stresses in megapascal. Okay, and from that you can get this bending moment in Newton millimeter, and eventually this force in Newton. So try to have the dimension of length as millimeter, and unit of force as, sorry, the unit of distance or length is millimeter, and force as Newton. So the consistent unit for mass in this case, because 1 Newton is 1 kg meter per second squared. So you can also write this to be 1 metric ton times millimeter per second squared. So this is the constant unit of mass when you have millimeter and second and Newton and megapascal, etc. Okay, so you can use this value if it is not mentioned anywhere in your instruction sheet. 210 GP you can use, and what else? I have a query, and that is your second assignment. So in the experiment video, Professor Das mentioned that W is the deflection, which is a function of x, right? So this deflection right here is a function of x, and that function he mentioned is a section of an arc, section of a circular arc. So he basically pointed towards this famous bending equation, which is y by rho equals epsilon, which is sigma divided by E and which basically means if the stress is constant, this of course is a material property, and this of course is the dimension of the cross section. And if you take the bending stress at a given location, say y equals h by 2, then sigma equals sigma b, so the maximum bending stress. And if this is constant, because the bending moment is constant, so that tells you rho is a constant, which basically means the radius of curvature is a constant. Okay. Which basically means this W deflects in a circular arc, which basically means there is some sort of equation like this, rho squared minus x squared. So W is something like this. But for example, if you have a cantilever beam and the tip load, you know that this is how the bending moment changes, right? It's a linear change, bending moment. And you know that the cantilever beam deflects in a cubic equation. So W of x is a cubic function. Similarly, if the bending moment is a constant, for example, with a cantilever beam and concentrated couple moment right there. So if the bending moment is a constant, if I look into this expression EIWW prime equals minus m, and even for our situation where you have pure bending moment is a constant, so you know W evolves to be C0 plus C1x plus C2x squared, a parabola or a parabolic function a quadratic function in x. It's a parabola. So the same pure bending situation tells you that the deflection pattern is a circular arc, and also tells you that this is a parabola. So how is this paradox happening? So this can be written further as E by rho equals sigma by y equals m by I, m divided by I. Okay. So stress of course is proportional to y measured from neutral axis, which is passing through the centroid of the cross section. But this basically indicates that the radius of curvature is a constant for a constant bending moment, because this of course is a constant across the cross section. There is a single representative value at a given cross section. and if that is not changing along the length, so I is also a constant, and this of course is a material property. And if I assume the beam to be homogeneous, this is also not changing. So if these two quantities are not changing and bending moment is a constant, so radius of curvature is a constant, right? So can you tell me why is it parabola in one side and circle on the other? So this is your second assignment question actually. কোশ্চেনটা কি বোঝা যাচ্ছে? কোশ্চেনটা কি বোঝা যাচ্ছে না?
স্যার আরেকবার বলবেন কোশ্চেন?
কোশ্চেনটা হচ্ছে যে on one side we see that W is supposed to be changing in a circular arc. So basically W and X forming a circle. Okay. And let's say the X being measured. So this is the origin of X, exactly in the middle of the section. And on another side, we are seeing that W is essentially changing in a parabolic pattern. So is the deflection curve actually a parabola or a circle? কোনটা ঠিক? বেন্ডিং ইকুয়েশন থেকে আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি যে radius of curvature is a constant. Okay, because the bending moment itself is a constant, and cross section is uniform throughout and homogeneous material and so on. But so that tells us that the deflection should happen in a circular arc. But again, the deflection equation EIW double prime, so that expression tells us the deflection equation should be a parabola. দুটো একসঙ্গে কি করে হবে? দুটোর মধ্যে কোনটা হচ্ছে? কি মনে হচ্ছে কি হবে উত্তর?
প্যারাবোলাই তো হবে।
প্যারাবোলাই হবে
কেন স্যার? ওই ডিফ্লেকশনটা যেটা আমরা ওই মানে ইআই ওয়াই ডবল প্রাইম দিয়ে যেটা পাচ্ছি, মানে ওটাই তো কার্ভটা হয়।
আচ্ছা, ওই যে EIW ডাবল প্রাইম, তার মধ্যে কোনো অ্যাপ্রক্সিমেশন নেই তো?
হ্যাঁ, ওই মানে ডেল্টাটা খুব স্মল হতে হবে এরকম একটা অ্যাপ্রক্সিমেশন।
না, আমি বলছি লেটস সে রেডিয়াস অফ কার্ভেচার is 1 plus W prime squared to the power half W double prime. তুমি যখন এই এক্সপ্রেশনটা পেয়েছিলে, rather this equation was obtained from this equation. এই দেখো, if I take the first term and the third term, I'm basically getting this equation, but then we assume that W prime is much smaller than 1. যেমন আমরা দেখালাম না যে delta R is many times smaller than R1 and R2, and in that situation when delta R is being either added or subtracted from R1 or R2, we can simply ignore that. But when delta R stands alone, we should be taking that into account. Here W prime squared, rather W prime যদি হয় 0.01, square হবে 10 to the power minus 4. W prime squared should be 10 to the power minus 4. If W prime is 0.01, that square হচ্ছে 10 to the power minus 4. So that is even more negligible. এবারে এই নেগলিজিবল কোয়ান্টিটি এইখানে আমরা একটা অ্যাপ্রক্সিমেশন করে নিই যখন আমরা ফাইনালি ডিফ্লেকশনের এই ইকুয়েশনটা লিখি। ফার্স্ট অফ অল তো এখানে একটা নেগেটিভ সাইন আসে, সেটা কেন আসে সেটা পরে এক্সপ্লেন করা হয়, বিকজ দিস কোয়ান্টিটি রেডিয়াস অফ কার্ভেচার ইজ অলওয়েজ গ্রেটার দ্যান 0. So this basically means this equals to absolute value of m divided by I. And পরে একটু অ্যানালিসিস করলে দেখা যায় যে it is actually negative. And if you substitute rho equals approximately 1 by w double prime is when you get this expression EI w double prime equals plus or minus n, whatever. So that you only get by substituting or ignoring the negligible w prime squared value. Okay. So in reality, this actually is a part of a circular arc, but the slope is so small that this could also be approximated with a parabola. In a way, both are true. It is literally, actually it's a circle, okay, but the slope is so small, it's a so small an aperture, মানে একটা বিম হচ্ছে ধরো 1 মিটার যদি হয়, ডিফ্লেকশনটা হয়তো কয়েক মিলিমিটার, w is so small, so w prime is even smaller, and then the square of w prime is even smaller, so the slope squared is so small that that circular arc could also be approximated with this parabola right here. এই পার্টটা কি বোঝা গেল কি বললাম?
হ্যাঁ স্যার।
Any other queries?